Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Movie Mondays. This is Off the Deep End, the show where we take a deep dive into pretty much anything we can get our hands on. I'm Arshdeep Singh, and I'm here with Kritik Merg. Kritik, say hi.
Hello, my name is Kritik Merg. How you guys doing? Good? Glad to hear it.
They literally don't care about
Okay.
everything.
Okay. You know
Anyway,
Okay.
we're bringing you guys a great film today, Manchester by the Sea, 2016 release.
Probably like the
Affleck, Michelle Williams.
probably like the deepest like movie that we've done.
Not the deepest movie we've watched, but
Not
the deepest
watched,
movie
but
we've done on the show. You know,
I like the hardest watch. The hardest watch.
Oh, this was the most difficult thing to watch, and full disclaimer, I watched it while I was it was like midnight or 2 a.m. or something when I was watching it, and
I saw it too.
Some things just go right over your head, and then you're like rewinding and trying to figure out like what the hell has happened. But this was nonetheless a very interesting film. Anyway, before we get right into it, let's dive right in. Let's get right into it, and without further ado, Manchester by the Sea. Okay, now Manchester by the Sea. We'll give you a quick premise, and then we'll get right into everything else. So, Manchester by the Sea is about our protagonist Lee Chandler, played by Casey Affleck, a man who's returning to the town he grew up in after years, and we later learn that there's some trauma, there's some stuff that comes up back and forth. But he comes back to this town because his brother passes. His brother, who's played by one of my favorite actors, Kyle Chandler.
Yeah,
and he's great in everything he's in. He's
Coach
just
Taylor.
Fantastic. Coach Taylor. He's great on oh my God, what's the show with him?
Bloodline?
Bloodline. I love him on Bloodline, which we may review on TV Tuesdays. Shameless plug. But he just a fantastic. Anyway, moving past it. I can gush about Kyle Chandler all day. That could be a whole podcast on its own. But unknown child trauma. He comes back for the passing of his brother, who's played by Kyle Chandler, and eventually he learns he has to take care of Patrick Chandler, who is his nephew, played by Lucas Hedges, who, by the way, does a fantastic Boston accent. Something to note: all these characters do great jobs with the Boston accent. Even Michelle Williams, who plays Casey Affleck, ex-wife Randy,
wife/ex-wife,
wife/ex-wife Randy, as well as even down to characters like Matthew Broderick, who I was not expecting to be in this film. All of them have this excellent Boston accent, so props to them first and foremost on that. But yeah, essentially it's about a man who returns to the scene of where he was hurt, where he was traumatized from, I don't want to say his youth, but a part of his life, and he has to come in, kind of handle all these things, a funeral, the whole 9 yards, and it pulls a strain on him as well as his nephew, who has obviously lost his father.
That's the main relationship that we follow, he and his nephew who had just lost his father too. So all these different balls in the air.
Exactly. And before we go any further, that's the best we can do without spoiling the film. So this is your spoiler warning. This movie came out 4 years ago. Get on it if you have not seen it already. It was met with lots of discussion and debate because it was a Sundance Film Festival movie first, and then it moved on to being a release, which means it's always heavily debated and heavily admired and admonished first. So anyway, Kritik, tell us something BTS related, but not the band, pertaining to this film.
Sheep, I'm telling you, we should write the movie about how this movie was made. There's a story here. I'm telling you.
I'm reading the notes right now, and it's just there's random actors involved. Okay, tell me the story.
Okay, so in 2011, a movie called The Adjustment Bureau was released. Right, also a great film. You guys should watch it. Shameless plug. With Emily Blunt and Matt Damon.
It can't be a shameless plug if it's not for something we make.
I was involved in it somehow, right? I've seen it enough times to be involved, right?
Kritik's inserting himself into the investigation. Yeah, he's one of those guys.
So basically, Emily Blunt and Matt Damon, right? Emily Blunt, who we know, is married to John Krasinski, right? Jim from The Office, Jack Ryan, Quiet Place, all the great guy. Jim, John Krasinski goes to set to visit his wife on set with Matt Damon. He meets Matt, they have this Boston connection, right? Create this friendship and partnership, right on the spot, in instant connection. They go out to dinner, right? And Matt to John is like, "Do you write?" Right? And John's nervously responds like, "Yes, kinda." And Matt's like, "Do you have an idea?" And he goes, "Yeah, I have this like little idea about these two brothers where one knows he's gonna die, and like he's asking his other brother to take care of his son. Eventually, that would become Manchester by the Sea, right? And it would originally star Matt and John, where Matt would direct, right? And so in developing this movie, John gets this other idea of a movie called Promised Land, right? And so that takes a fast track, right? Both Matt and John write that. That gets filmed and released, right? And so in that process, they give Manchester by the Sea to Kenneth Lonergan, right? He comes back 2-3 years later. Matt and John have kind of forgotten about the script, and then he comes back with his first draft, which was in all the words beautiful, right? And so they're like, all right, this is a go. We have a script. Matt is going to direct. Kenny had written a great script. But then The Martian came along, right? Matt Damon was doing The Martian, right? Didn't have the schedule or the dates to do.
Quick side note: Martian, one of my favorite movies of all time. So I'm very happy that not shameless plug. I'm not even ashamed about it. Like it's not. It can't be any sort of plug. But yeah, another great film which we'll probably get to reviewing eventually. But anyway, yes, continue. Kritik.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So The Martian comes along. Right? Matt no longer has like the dates to do this, right? So he's like, I have one actor. I will only give to this one actor. If not, we will wait 2 years when I'm free to do it. So during the development process, he'd been giving Casey Affleck, his longtime friend. He and Casey did a play in 2002 written by Lonergan, just to look at the drafts and stuff. So Casey was like kind of invested with it. He told Kenny and Casey that Casey's the only actor he would give it up to. And at this point, Matt's already signed on as a producer, right? And he says his smartest decision to date is as a producer giving Kenny Lonergan the movie to direct, right? Smart decision, right? Film gets made.
I think he could say that it worked out. Yeah. It worked out for him,
right?
Yeah.
And so, so like we mentioned, it was a Sundance film. It was a tiny film, right? Everyone they pitched it to kind of rejected it, because it's a tough movie about grief, right? It got rejected everywhere. It's a small film.
And when he says small, he means in terms of budget and interest. It is a long ass movie. It's more than 2 hours, which by today's standards is a long movie still, like in today's standards. Like it's no Endgame, but it's long.
Right. Then the angel Kimberly Stewart comes along, right? She's looking to produce and like bankroll her first film, right? She like loves the pitch and script for Manchester by the Sea, right? Basically like takes a swing at it, like puts her money on the line for this film. It was basically an indie film, right? It premiered at Sundance, and then on that night it premiered, they sold it to Amazon, and then Oscars, all these different accolades, and the rest is history. So you heard it here first. Me and Arshdeep are gonna be writing a movie about how this movie got made. I'm playing John Krasinski.
Why do you get to be John Krasinski?
Oh, that's right. He's too tall. You can be John. I'll be Casey.
All right, that's fine. Wait, I want to be Kenneth Lonergan. I want to be the guy dressed.
Let's play all of them in it.
You can see my priority is I'm clearly want to direct this film much more than I'd like to do anything else.
Let's just play all the characters in like prosthetic. Like one day you're playing John and I'm playing Matt, and then in the next scene like you're playing Kenny and I'm playing Casey, and then at some point I become Kyle Chandler. Like with prosthetics. We'll do it.
Brown Matt Damon and brown John Krasinski and brown Kenneth Lonergan. Oh, and then brown guy in a wig playing Kimberly Stewart. Brown Jeff Bezos coming up to buy the movie. That's exactly how it goes down. Yep, you heard it here first.
But guys. It's crazy, like everything. But it's crazy to think that
for this film.
And
this is one of the stories that like kind of this is like one of the crazier stories for film development, but like all these films have very rough exteriors, especially those that are done at Sundance first. There are a lot of good films that come right out of Sundance. Oh my god, there's one Whiplash comes right out of Sundance, and it's funny and like literally like the history behind that movie is also very rich. And another thing that I think is interesting, you said make a movie about this. Casey Affleck did a film with Joaquin Phoenix called I'm Still Here, which was like a satire on the life of Joaquin Phoenix up until that point. And I think Casey directed it and Joaquin starred in it, but I think it's very interesting that they literally like made a life about how they got to that movie. It's just a roundabout way to get places, but it's interesting to think that Casey Affleck wasn't even on the scene until this movie really came out. Like he was in the background. He was, behind his brother Ben, obviously. Brother or cousin? Brother. Yeah. Brother Ben, obviously in the shadows, but this was his debut film. And now he's acting a bunch. I think he's acting with Jason
Segel and Dakota Johnson.
Yeah. Jason Segel and Dakota Johnson. Yes. In a new film right now that's going to come out, which hopefully maybe we will review, but pretty interesting how he gets a start. And
I think the story tells a lot too, because just because you're Matt Damon and John Krasinski doesn't mean that, everyone's going to like bankroll your movie. Right. And like they had to work hard.
This is and it's funny to think that this is a risky project when we think of films like The Usual Suspects. We think of films like Shawshank Redemption. We think of films that were very risky and did not do well, but have gone down in history
shameless plug on The Usual Suspects. The writer and director both went to my high school.
Kritik needs a dictionary to understand what shameless plug means. Guys, we're taking all sorts of suggestions for dictionaries. Leave them down in the comments. We'll buy Kritik a dictionary for his birthday this year, so he can learn what the word shameless plug means. Anyway, yes, you get to brag that you have cool people who went to your high school. We get it. No one cool went to my high school except for me. Anyway, going down the line, I think this is the history behind this film is rich, but let's get into the film now a little bit more. Like, obviously I love talking about BTS. BTS is always fun, especially when you're talking big universe, you're talking funding, you're talking financing, you're talking.
Can I just say, like, my favorite part about talk BTS, like, if you guys have seen a couple of our podcasts, like I do the BTS and Arshdeep like doesn't read it or like know about it until I start talking about it. And so I love seeing Arshdeep's reactions to it.
He copy pasted in like literally 30 seconds before we press record. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like I can't read that fast. I read like a 4th grade reading level. So it takes me like a minute just to get through one sentence. I'm like, you know what? He'll tell me the story and we'll figure it out there. And he'll always have something cool. And sometimes if it's like an older film, I might know a little bit of it, but like, this one I was completely like, this is stricken. I had no anticipation of any of this. So, Kritik always surprises me. Love that about Kritik. But anyway, let's get right into the film. So the film, Kritik, I'm going to ask you the question today. Yes. What does the film do right in your opinion? Obviously, I have my opinion written in here and it's always written in here, but tell me about what this film did right out the bat.
Like some of the themes that the film follows is like grief and loss and like how you deal with it. But I think the way the script was written was beautiful. Like it had these subtle moments of humor to it as well. Like I don't know if you noticed
dark humor, very dark humor.
But like
when they're in the hospital, his brother gets diagnosed, all that stuff, very dark.
And even just some of the like, and even sometimes in the silence was kind of funny, right? Like I think the script was written really beautifully, and like you could picture like you could see this happening, right? It was a very relatable script, right? It was just about regular people, right? It wasn't flashy, right? It was just about these people in Boston, right? In Manchester. And I thought it was done really well. I liked the like parallel timelines that were going through it. If you see it, like you get to see Lee's life, before and after, his event, before and after the death of his brother. I think it was done really well. And also, the ending surprised me. It wasn't, it wasn't something you'd expect.
It wasn't a Marvel movie. It did not end on spoiler alert, but it did not end on a happy note. It ended on, honestly, when I was watching this with my friend and she was like, it doesn't end happy. And I'm like, it ends realistically. It ends very, very realistically. It ends very practically. Like to see someone go through this, and it links into my favorite scene a little bit, to see someone go through this and to kind of have that, oh, they're getting over it, like they're back in the hometown. To me, I think you can't really recover where you've been hurt. Like I think wherever you've been hurt or wherever the hurt has come from, you can never recover there. You always have to be somewhere else, which to me is why I really get why he's trying to get back to Boston. He's like, I want to get out of here. I don't want to be close. And I think it's very realistic. I think the right thing for him to do, honestly, in this situation was to pass on the sort of guardianship of his his nephew, his nephew. Sorry, sorry to the actor. Sorry, Lucas. My bad. No, but it was very realistic to me to see him pass off that responsibility. And one thing I want to say that I really liked was the bluntness of the flashbacks. You know, usually in film, I do like when they put a filter over flashbacks. I do like when they darken it. I'm not a big fan of when they make all Latin American countries in like the most radiant filter of all time. I think that's really stupid. But I think I get why they're coming from a story perspective. But it was really refreshing to see a rough cut where things are just kind of happening and you have to pay attention. It was almost like when you're watching like a foreign film, you need to pay attention because you don't want to miss subtitles, you don't want to miss things in detail. But at the same time with this film, it was nice to be able to kind of have to pay attention. Like it wasn't a film that I could just be cooking and listen to in the background. It was a film I needed to see the visuals on. Yeah. And one thing I'll notice, and from a camera angle perspective, sorry, I keep cutting Kritik off.
No, go.
He was never framed from an aerial or a lower angle like Casey Affleck's character. Very neutral. It was always a head-on shot. They were never, ever very complex movement shots. It was never like that. But he was always framed neutrally. And I think it's really funny they never played with the power dynamic aspect in a camera angle. They always did it with the acting talent, which I think it's like there's a scene from the Green Book, I think. I forgot what movie it's from. But he says like, oh, it's easy to make something taste good with salt. It's harder to make something taste good when you don't have salt, you know, because salt is like it's easy to use camera angles and everything else to influence. But the fact that the acting is what showed me where things lied was very impressive. Like to me, to not see the angles doing too much, very simple camera, very over the shoulder shots, back and forth, no one takes, no long shots, very simple, but the acting talent did really well in terms of delivering the thing. So mad respect. That was one thing I thought the film did really,
and Kenny
well.
Is, you know, this is only his third film, right? He's a writer and a playwright to begin with. And all three of his films have gone on to be nominated in some sort of capacity. And this one he actually went on to win best screenplay at the Academy Award for best screenplay, which well deserved, very well deserved.
I mean, and it was competing with some good films. I mean, I think it was competing with Fences. It was competing with some very well made films.
He was also nominated for best director, and I forgot who that went to, but I think it was done very well. You know, like using his talent as a third-time director. Like I think he did what he had to do to tell the story correctly, which is that part was overlooked by the director. Of the director, because they're in charge of like every little shot and frame, and each shot tells a different story. Each angle tells a different story. And you're right. Like I didn't notice it until now, but you can see yourself there, right? Because you're standing right next to, in the frame next to Casey Affleck or Lucas Hedges, right? On the boat, you can see yourself, shifting around.
But it's very simple. It's like the definition of anyone can make a movie. This was the movie that you could do it if you had Casey Affleck and money. It was one of those things where it's like, okay, cool. If I had a nice camera and Casey Affleck wanted to do a film with me, this is something I could have made.
It's one of those things where like the story is the thing driving like the movie. It wasn't the effects. It wasn't the big spectacle. It wasn't a fight scene. It was
this movie was never gonna win best costume design. It was never going to miss best design elements because it's just Boston and then Manchester subsequently, but it was just Massachusetts. So it was one of those things where it was very beautifully done for the lack of colorfulness of a place. Like, no offense to anyone who lives in Massachusetts, I'm not saying it, but the way this movie frames it, it's very, very boring looking at times. Lots of wood paneling in everyone's homes.
Gloomy, yeah. It was kind of gloomy.
Exactly. And I'm not trying to hate on Boston, but this is also one of those movies where if you wanted to turn it into a drinking game, you 100% could. Like if you were to drink every time someone mentioned something remotely Boston related or remotely Massachusetts related, like you could be messed up by like hour 1 of this movie. I just want to make that abundantly clear. I don't condone drinking, but but with anyone who wants to try that, please let us know how it ends up. I'm very, very curious. Another thing that I think is also very interesting is sound. I don't know if you noticed it or picked up on it, but I think the theme of sound in this film was very interesting. It was either very ambient, and it would be like the shore, waves crashing, gulls chirping, silence, like utter deafening silence.
Played a lot in this, yeah.
Or it was overdone score. Like score was very important here. There were a lot of like during one of the most pinnacle moments in the film when we find out that spoilers, last spoiler warning here, that he burns down his house unknowingly, which kills his 3 kids. You can literally see like I know you can't see sounds, like I'm not trying to act like I'm like on something, but you can see the emotion of the music. It's very hard to explain, but it is just pounding at your soul when all this is happening. It's almost like sensory overload, like the visual of the house burning, Casey Affleck's visual of him like losing his shit while he's holding diapers in his hand because he just went. And you
talk about the bluntness of cuts, like if you were paying attention to that moment, like, and then the fire shows up out of nowhere because like that's like the flashback section, it catches you off guard so quickly because you don't see it coming, right?
Exactly. It's almost like when horror films make you feel uncomfortable by playing like subconscious you can't really hear them, but you register them sounds in the background. This was the exact same. It was a horror movie element in my opinion, but it was done for a sort of catch you off guard. Like you don't expect there to be a fire. I expected the divorce to be over something nasty, and I expected his kids to be somewhere, but I didn't expect them to go out like they did.
Like burn alive.
Like burnt alive. Like I was not expecting that. And that shit, like when I say that shit killed me on the inside, it killed me on the inside. Watching the rest of that movie was hard. We paused. We took a moment, we collected ourselves, and then we moved on when I was watching it. But with a friend of mine. But it takes a lot out of you watching that scene. Even just like watching it was hard. Like I can't even imagine how Casey Affleck must have felt after filming the scenes in that domain, because it was so draining. It was so physically tiring to see him like that. I mean, he must have been dead tired after that shoot, emotionally speaking, without a doubt. There's no question to it. All right, now, unless there's anything, I would say this film overall is a very simply made film, and it's deceptively simply made to where people are like, oh, I could do that. But it's like you said, it's the story that gives it heart. It's the story that gives it soul. Mm-hmm. It's the actors that deliver it. Every actor in this movie, unknown or otherwise, kills their role.
Kills. Yeah.
Without a doubt. I mean, let's just go down the list. Casey Affleck, we know he's great. He's going to be great. Michelle Williams, in her limited time in this movie, always made me killed it. Yeah. Kyle Chandler, we know, and you see like, so I'm not even going to include him. Michelle Williams. Exactly. You see Michelle Williams like in this pre-loss of her kids and this post-loss of her kids, and she's actually involved in one of my favorite scenes, but does a fantastic acting job. Kyle Chandler, fantastic. Lucas Hedges, for a kid from Boston with 2 girlfriends, I think he does a fantastic job playing like the douchebag kid.
Yeah.
And I still feel for him. Like there are times when I'm like, oh, you're being really annoying to your
and that's the now thing, right?
Dad. But
like Lucas and like Patrick's character, right? Like his dad dies, and you don't really see a reaction out of him till like he has a panic attack like 40 minutes into like later into the film, right? Mm-hmm. This man, like, his dad had just died,
and he's getting laid.
For lack
of a better term,
right? And then he's like, "Yeah, can I have some friends over and like order a pizza?" Like that's what he wanted, right? You don't see him, but in your brain, that's weird, right? And then
it's strange,
and then it builds up to that like panic attack that happens. But that's about
I think
it, right?
But I think it's so telling, right? Like with trauma being a creature, like you want to go right back to a routine, right? And for him, a routine is his friends come over on a Saturday night, they hang
Playing
out,
hockey.
they play hockey. He's in a band with his second girlfriend. It's very interesting dynamic. But to me, I'm like, okay, like it makes sense why that character is here right now, and I know he's going to explode later.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
over the chicken in the fridge, he just loses it over the freezer. And like it doesn't surprise me that it's a slow burn, because I feel like trauma is inherently like that. Loss is inherently like that. Even Casey Affleck's character is pretty much just neutral until we get to when he sees his brother. And then when he punches the window and pretty much everything else he punches. There's a lot of punching done in this film by Casey Affleck, punching people. And you just kind of see that Casey Affleck is slowly losing it at different times and over different reasons. Sometimes it's the trauma of what happened to him with his family. Sometimes it's over his brother. Sometimes it's over just his nephew kind of pushing him to the edge. Like there's multiple reasons for trauma. One thing I will say though, yeah, exactly. He's like, well, I don't fucking know what to do. Like what I like is he's not like an aggressive person. He's like a very mild mannered person, but then he just like explodes at times, which I think is how I would probably, I think anyone would be like that after going through all this fucking trauma. I can't even attempt to put myself in this situation. I don't want to. I don't want to attempt that. Like this is one of those movies where it's like, oh, you can't even like fathom for 1 second you'd want to be in this person's shoes. Like there's no reason to. Like there are not many films like that, but there's some films when you're like, oh, it'd be cool to be like Kobayashi from Unusual Suspects, or it'd be cool to be this character. But you're like, no, I don't want to be any of these people in this film because all of their lives suck at one point or another. Which is true, which is facts, except maybe Kyle Chandler. I mean, he goes out like on top, I guess. So, all right, things this film does wrong. Do you have any? I have some.
I mean, you put bluntness of cuts in both. I put
bluntness of cuts in both because the thing I want to say is if there's a person who doesn't like super active watch, it'll just turn you off to the whole thing.
Yeah, like I would say like the first time the cut came around with Kyle Chandler, I'm like, wait, didn't he just die? Like it took me a second.
It takes a second to get adjusted to it, but it's like when you turn the lights on after you've been like in the dark for a long time, or when you've been watching a movie. It like takes a second, but then you get used to it and you'll like it. So if you're not into that at all, then it won't do you any good. Yeah. The characters' names confused me because there was a Randy and there was a Sandy, and then like I was like, oh, I was just referring to them as their actor names. I was like, oh, Michelle Williams and that's Casey Affleck. Yeah. When I should have been like, that's Lee and that's Sandy or Randy. Randy. Sorry.
Randy.
Yeah.
Kyle Chandler's name in the movie was last name was also Chandler. Didn't like that. Didn't like that. Too many Chandlers.
Exactly. It was very confusing at times with the names. I guess that's just inherently like it happens in some films. There are plenty of films where I've been like, oh, this white guy looks like this white guy who looks like this white guy. and that confuses the hell out of me in some movies. But this movie, it was clear to follow the story. But if you asked me to refer back to names without looking up at the Wikipedia, I would have been lost. I would have been like, I don't know who these people are, but I know their story. So it was one of those things where it was very like the character wasn't memorable as a name. It's like the equivalent of like knowing where your friend lives, but not knowing their address. That's how I equate it. It's the exact same thing. Like, you know, generally where it is and you know how to get there, but if someone asks you, oh, what's their address? You'd be like, 3 rights and a left. Like it wouldn't be like, you wouldn't be able to pinpoint it exactly. Yeah. I
texted Arshdeep the other day.
Anyone's address. Don't give my address away, Kritik.
I texted Arshdeep the other day about names in the Avengers, and I was like, I'm so mad in Avengers Infinity War, they didn't make a joke about Peter Quill and Peter Parker. I'm still mad about that. Anyway, we're talking about names.
Names in general. You're just like, yeah, this feels relevant.
This feels wrong. Yeah. No,
fair enough.
Something that like we said before, this movie was 2 hours and some long.
I think it was almost 2 hours and 17 minutes. I want to say
something like that. It was a long film, right? Didn't have to be that long, I would say.
Very drawn out.
It was a little drawn out. We got like there were certain moments where where the pacing was a little off. Like we got the beats of the film, we got the important parts. There were some parts maybe that we didn't need. So originally the first draft of this film was 150 pages. Then when it came to shooting time, Kenny Lonergan cut it down to 120. So cut it by 30
Yeah,
pages.
each page is about a minute. Yeah, that doesn't.
Yes, and so 2 hours, goes above a little bit. So it's right around that ballpark, which the script said. I think like coming from a playwright, it makes a little sense. Like seeing the working of his brain, plays are a little longer. I didn't think it had to be this long, like I said, but I think it was fine.
I was gonna say I think it probably comes from his background, like you said, playwright, and then it immediately clicked for me. I was like, "Yep, okay, that makes sense." Plays are like 4 hours long with an intermission, so he's probably more used to dealing with that stuff. But I get it. Like I could see why he needed to do certain things, but there were certain scenes when I was like, "This could have been much expedited, and I would have been fine with it or without it." Yeah. And lastly, for me,
and that's the thing. Wait, can one more thing
no,
about
go
that?
Jump in.
Where we talk a lot about the silence of the film, right? So a lot of the film could have been just said, with like dialogue, but like a lot of it was shown through just silence and like them going about it, right? So that probably
which is appreciated.
Which was appreciated, which is why and it went from 120 minutes to plus 17 minutes at the end, but like think about, I think that's probably why like there was a lot of dialogue, but like it was like short bites, Case Affleck would say like a sentence and then like it'd be a bunch of silence, or like him, walking
or just him like loitering in his kitchen alone, drinking beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Cold pizza, something like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was, but I mean, it depends on how you view it. I could say that some people might not think it's drawn out. Some people might think it's the appropriate amount of time. Some people thought it could be longer. It's one of those things. I feel it's a little drawn out. I feel like things could have been expedited. And I also don't like watching movies that are like more than 2 hours and 10 minutes. So this movie just kind of moved into that category. Last one for me. Honestly, this movie was real as fuck. And this movie hit hard at times. And I will say this.
I can't think of another film that is like, and to be fair, like I don't watch films like these. Like I don't watch a lot of the Oscar nominated films, but like
we're gonna be watching a lot of Oscar nominated.
We are now
forward.
Yeah,
way more.
But it hit. Like you're right.
Yeah, like this movie was so hard for me to process at times. I was like, wow, like this is really heavy. It was like, I don't want to say like it was work to watch this movie because it was a beautiful film and I would have watched and I 100% would watch it again if someone was interested in watching it. But I don't think this is something I would actively sit and rewatch. Like even if this was on like cable, I'd be like, yep, nope, we're gonna watch, freaking Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And
like
again, versus
like I have like people in my life that like I wouldn't recommend this film to only because I don't want their brain going
happy
to that
movie
place.
Watchers. Yeah.
So
but it was one of those things where like it could be something that's done wrong. Like it's not a film for everyone. It really isn't. This is not a family movie. This is not everyone should watch the movie. This is someone who's very secure, very stable mentally speaking should watch this film. And it's funny because this movie's not a mental illness film, but it feels like it could borderline be a mental illness film at times. It doesn't really talk about it like
because Lee definitely needs some sort of help. Yeah, right.
Oh, he needs therapy. He needs something. Yeah. But in A Beautiful Mind, it's about schizophrenia. That whole movie's about it. But here, it's not like that. This movie's not talking about how he needs therapy. This movie's just talking about how he will never recover from what happened.
Yeah.
And I think that's very morbid and very difficult to come to terms with for some things in people's lives. So 100% don't recommend this to everyone. But we've touched on our favorite, moving forward now. I don't want to slander this film anymore on little things because I feel like we're just nitpicking at this point. But
we love it. Like we love the film.
It was a great film, but we've just been
beautifully written.
Honestly.
Like Kenny Lonergan, if you want to come on our podcast, feel free, whatever you want.
Exactly. And like we're just nitpicking. Like this is like some Screen Junkies type beat where we just like nitpick the film because
we have to,
else, because we got nothing else to say on it. But no, fantastic made film to both the actors and set people. Excellent job. Now, favorite scene. I'm gonna let you go first on this one because you know what, people think I push you out of the way too much, so I'm gonna let you go first.
People, you do.
People, I think I bully Kritik a little too much. I have remorse. I can be the bigger person.
Yeah.
So
some of our own personal BTS. Arshdeep texted me yesterday editing a podcast, and he goes, "Bro, why does it look like I'm just like bullying you in this podcast?"
promise you he still loves me, and no HIV reports have been filed against me yet.
Oh my god.
There are
But
restraining
yes,
orders in the works, but everything else is still
yeah.
above board.
There's a reason that like, I'm in Jersey right now and like you're in Maryland,
Exactly. Exactly.
Anyway,
There's a reason we only ever recorded over Zoom.
yeah. Anyway, favorite scene was the police interrogation scene, right? Spoiler warning if we haven't already given it yet. Like we said, Lee Chandler, Casey Affleck's character, mistakenly burns his house down, burning alive his 3 kids, his wife was really injured, in the fire. And so after that, and like his performance afterwards, like the post fire was beautiful.
My favorite part of the post fire is when he's clinging to the diapers. I think that shit broke my fucking heart when I watched that. I saw that and I was like, wow, he's really selling this, and he's doing prop acting with a bag full of diapers, like,
because that's what would happen, right?
thought?
Like in a lot of films, you'll just see like the person would just start crying and screaming, right? Like most people I know would like be in shock and internally not know how to react.
And it's not to say that he doesn't break down, because he does. He breaks down,
and like he has to, yeah.
Yeah, with his brother, he breaks down. Mm-hmm. But what I love is that there's very like, there's a fuse to it. It's almost like when like in video games and you like throw a grenade, like it's gonna just sit there for a couple seconds and then it blows up. Yeah, which is exactly what happens.
He was in shock, and like, I think he played that perfectly. But the scene right after that, they're at the police station. Right, the police officers are taking a report of kind of what happened.
They're kind of saying, "Oh, did you do anything that?"
Yeah, they were just like,
"Was this motivated?
What happened?" Yeah, explain what happened. He says, I was drunk. I went to we were out of beer. I went to the store. I put out a fire because it was really cold inside the house for the girls.
The kids were still shivering. He puts in more logs, and eventually the fire.
Yeah, forgot to put a screen on the fire. Like a log probably rolled out, burned the house down, right? And so he's, and you can see he's still in shock, right? He just trying to answer the questions as best as he can, as basically as like literally as he can. And then once the police officer says like, all right, like, we just have to go through the lawyers or whatever, and like you should be exonerated, and he's like, what? Right? Like you can see his face moving.
In his brain, he wants to be punished. He wants something to happen to him
because he killed his 3 of his kids, and that's all played through like silence. Basically, like his face shows it more than anything else, right? You can see
the score in the background.
You can see the police officer trying to comfort him, but like he wants to be punished, and then very quickly he gets up. Right, takes a gun from like a police officer's like holster and puts it to his head. Right,
and the safety is on so it doesn't fire. He's trying to change it, and then they eventually subdue him.
So like I talked about the silence law in this film, right? Where like he's showing more with his face than he is with action and with dialogue, and I thought it was beautifully played out. This whole police officer like police interrogation scene at the police office. Yeah, police station.
I want to say the word every time Kritik says the word "please," take a shot in this podcast.
Yeah. And then afterwards, like you see him in a whole different light throughout the rest of the film. And then you can see why he doesn't want to stay in Manchester any longer. You can see all these different things. You can see why I got divorced, because this was a slow burn. Pun intended.
No pun intended. Oh my God, that's the darkest joke we've made on this podcast. Lord, we're terrible.
No, but like,
people. Sorry, the Casey Affleck's fictional character.
Oh my God, but like you see all these little like plot points coming up in the beginning that are paid off later, like why he got divorced, why he doesn't want to be in Manchester anymore, and you kind of see why, and would not have expected it to be a fire that like burned his house down. Anyway,
exactly.
Police station scene. Take a shot. I said police. I said it again. Favorite scene. That's my favorite scene.
It's funny, and my favorite scene comes a little later, but it is almost in direct relation to coming to terms with trauma. And mine is when he sees his ex. Him and Michelle Williams play off each other very well. And what I found is the scene is well made because I think it's the exact antithesis to what I believe. I'm always proponent for getting the bad blood out. I'm very much about apologizing and very much about getting closure. But I realized that in very severe cases of trauma, closure doesn't help. And I think that's a sad realization to come
A lot of
to.
times it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't exist. And I feel like this was one of them when she's kind of like, "Hey, like let's get lunch, let's talk about it. Let me kind of exonerate you of this." And you realize that in his mind he can never be exonerated of this.
Yeah.
Like it's not about the fact that Michelle Williams probably said all these terrible things to him years ago. It's about the fact that he himself will never get over it, and that's why there's no one on this planet.
Even though
who
like
ever
technically it's
let
not
him
his
get
fault.
over it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think one of my favorite things is like it's funny because she's walking with her kid and you can clearly see Michelle Williams has moved on, which is her way of going forward. Is she kind of walked past it, right? I don't want to say she washed her hands of it. She probably remembers it a lot, but she moved on and moved past it. But for him, it's not possible. He's just not in the headspace to do so. And I think it's beautifully made abundant. Like he's losing it slowly. He's like, please don't talk to me. Don't contact me. I don't think this is going to work. And she's trying to sort of save his soul and she can't do it. And that's painful to me. I mean, even though she's moved on, she probably still loves him to some extent.
No, she even says like she's still in love with him. Like she wants to make it work.
Yeah. And but at the end, it's like, can you really, it's like, like, can you wash that much red out of your ledger? Can you really undo all of these things? Or is it even possible to move past something this traumatic? And I think that's a very excellent question to pose. And honestly, I think this movie says no. I think this movie says it's not possible.
And that's why this movie is so great, right? It doesn't give you like the happy ending you want, right?
It doesn't give you the happy ending you want. It gives you the realistic overture of what probably would happen to most people.
Yeah.
Which hurts and stings, and I'm gonna need to watch like The Rookie for the next like week just to get over it, because Nathan Fillion makes me feel better, and even that is right now sad. So it's been a tough 2 days for television in the Arshdeep Singh life, but I think anyway that's a wrap on Manchester by the Manchester by the Sea. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. We love and appreciate you guys hearing us out. I know sometimes we get into talking about things that are probably a little boring or repetitive, like when we say the word police multiple times. Kritik, or the word shameless plug. We'll be putting all those on t-shirts, so don't worry about it. You guys can. Yeah. Could you imagine we start selling shameless plug t-shirts and we start selling the police station at the police police. That's just at what the police station says. On one side of the shirt it'll say "Get off your high horse," on the other says "Go fuck yourself."
That'd be my dream.
That happens. That's what I want someone.
I'm ready to go.
Like,
I'm ready to go.
God,
I'm ready to
I
go.
listened to your podcast and I bought this shirt. I would die. I would die. I would hire that guy on the spot. That whoever this person is, I would be like, "Yep, you're hired to make our merchandise."
I'd be like, you know what? Like, I'm putting you in my will because like my family's not isn't listening to this. I'm like, yeah, you know what?
This guy gets everything. give him or her everything I own. Yes, everything.
Give him the podcast. Like when we retire, he gets it.
Yes, they take it on. You pick one person, I pick one person. They make it work generationally.
Oh my
Perfect.
God.
Love that legacy. But anyway, thank you guys for sticking around to the end. If you liked what you heard here. I hate saying here because it sounds like I'm like summoning like her matches like here like here. It sounds like I'm from like royal times.
Something from Shrek.
Medieval times.
It
sounds like I'm from Shrek. Lord Farquaad. Oh my God, I love his name, Lord Farquaad. It sounds like fuckwad.
Oh
Anyway, thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. Again, if you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please follow, like us, subscribe, comment. If you don't like the fact that Kritik says police so much in the episode, let us know and we'll try to use a different word.
Bully.
Yeah, if you don't like us using the word shameless plug or someone has a definition for it, also comment below and let us know what shameless plug actually means. And until next time, this has been Off the Deep End Movie Mondays, where we bring you a movie. I'm your host, Arshdeep Singh.
And I'm your host, Kritik Merg.
And you're also my host, Kritik Merg. And we'll see you guys next time on Off the Deep End.
Bye-bye.